That's a wrap on Super Wildcard Weekend, and some might say they saw it coming, but it comes to an abrupt end for the Philadelphia Eagles, 32-9. Tampa Bay puts a number on them. It's 6 of 7 the wrong way for Philly as their season ends in the wild card round. But the story to be told is one of Baker Mayfield. 337, 3 passing touchdowns in his second career playoff victory. 426 yards of total offense here for Tampa Bay as they move on to take on Detroit in the divisional round. In studio, Joe Musso alongside Bryant McFadden here with Reaction and Mac.
Yes, sir.
For all of the negativity that will be spoken about the Philadelphia Eagles, some accolades and adornment needs to be given here to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who show up to this moment as underdogs in their own building. Whatever Vegas saw did not come to fruition in this one. How were they able to take the opportunities that the Eagles afforded them and run with them, make the scoreboard look like what it did?
Well, I think it's safe for me to start with the quarterback, Baker Mayfield, right? He had an unbelievable game, and I felt like this was a great opportunity for Baker to do some real good things based on the team he was going against defensively, especially in the secondary. That has been the Achilles heel for the Philadelphia Eagles, the inability to prevent splash plays, big-time numbers from pass catchers, and tackling. Those things surfaced once again tonight for Philadelphia in favor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Baker Mayfield exploited those matchups. I mean, 337 yards, Joe. 3 touchdowns, 22 of 36. Splash plays, being aggressive, taking shots down the football field, and doing so with confidence. I mean, this is a guy I think is, you know, we saw Baker flashes here or there throughout the season, but this game tonight was his best performance in a Buccaneers uniform in the most critical moments during the season, which is playoff time.
All amplified by the idea that week 17 it was 13 points, week 18 9 points by this Buccaneers team, and here they hang a number on the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we get to some thoughts there on the losing side, Baker, I'm not sure we're making a big enough deal about this. He's the guy that nobody wanted. He's the guy that bounced around 4 teams in 3 years, seems to have found a home in Tampa Bay. What about his play? And yes, it has improved, but what about his play matches this group of guys so well?
Well, you know, just watching the game and hearing, you know, the individuals talk about Baker, they said the thing that has really allowed him to be at his best, they're allowing Baker to be Baker. They're allowing Baker to have fun. They're allowing Baker to talk, to showcase his swag, just the confidence that we witnessed while he was playing college football at Oklahoma. Remember some of the things he did, just showing the emotions, the extra antics that some people, it might rub some people the wrong way, but that's who he is. And then he talked about going to Cleveland, and they kind of tried to take some of that out of his game plan. Sean McVay was the guy who said, Baker, just play football. Let it all hang out, play football, and when you're playing football and you're at your best, you feel comfortable in doing so, you will see successful results. That's what we're seeing here. And also, too, you can tell, Joe, his teammates, they believe in him. The coaches offensively, they believe in him. And I think he feeds off of their energy as well, knowing that I got a bunch of guys in this locker room that know I can get the job done. And that faith of confidence has done something for Baker in his ability to perform.
He's always had confidence within, but now it's a confidence that sort of is spread across this entire roster. They will have to carry that confidence into Detroit to take on that team and that building. It's going to be no small task. We do have to address the season that just ended, and it ended about as deadpan as one could expect it to. 6 of their last 7 games in the loss column, this Eagles team. They were sitting at 10-1 in a 1 seed, looking like they're primed to take care of unfinished business from a year ago. Now, it's a locker room fractured, people calling for jobs, ownership left with decisions, and a team that did not show up, albeit on the road, but you squander a division, that's one thing. You go on the road here in the playoffs with an opportunity. Vegas sees you as a short favorite, and you squander another opportunity.
Wasn't even competitive, Joe.
How do you reconcile where they were to where they ended?
It's hard for me to say this, but I think this is the issue for the Eagles, especially a team that made it all the way to the Super Bowl and kind of returns most of their key contributors from last year's team. I think they lack leadership, Joe, on both sides of the football. And it's hard for me to say that, but that has to be one of their main issues for the lackluster style of play. Because they have talent. I mean, most of the guys that were a part of their team a year ago, they are there right now, right? The key contributors. You lost some folks, you lost some coaches. Okay, cool. We understand that happens year in and year out. But the key contributors are still there. The Fletcher Cox of the world, Brandon Grahams of the world, Darius Slay, you know, Jalen Hurts, Devontae,
Jason
Brown,
Kelsey,
Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson.
The voices should be there.
Yes, guys who've been a part of the Philadelphia Eagles organization double-digit years and still mean a lot to their success. But they lack leadership, because when you talk about a team that started the season 10-1 in their first 11 games and found a way to squander everything they had at their disposal during that time, it boils down to leadership. Because leaders do what? When that boat starts to rattle, shake a little bit at sea, they calm it down. You know, I talk about my move side quarterbacks, right, from yesterday. You know, the C.J. Strouds of the world, the Jordan Loves of the world. These are guys that can calm things down. They got to find a guy that can do so. And I understand, I see it as this. I don't know how you guys feel, Joe. I don't know how you feel. But I feel like playing the quarterback position, it's a leadership position. You got to be willing to lead. And I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts is not willing to lead, but at some point in time, you need to see your quarterback do some of the things that we've seen from Pat Mahomes. Get the guys on the sideline, rally the troops, and let's go. Let's be vocal, show emotions.
Was Ben that, in your experience, when things started to get a little shaky? Did you guys have that, or was that more of a defensive voice?
Later in his career.
Yeah.
Early on in his career, you know, we were a defensive-oriented team, you know what I mean? But as he became older with the experience, then he became a guy that, okay, like, listen, what's going on?
This is how it's going to go.
This is how it's going to go. And I think we need to see more of that from their big leader, big-time leader in Jalen Hurts, because what we've witnessed in that 7-game stretch where you talk about losing, what 6 out of the 7 or something like that, the leaders got to find a way to get the job done and get people on the same page. Because as you mentioned, Joe, when we were watching this game in the green room, people going to say, well, they lost both of their coordinators. They meant a lot. Well, you had new coordinators when you were 10-1.
10-1 with new coordinators. We've been hammering that. That was an early storyline in this season. Yeah. They navigated that nicely to that 10-1 mark, but we've come back to that. Now we're trying to find the root of the issue here, and I think you touched upon some things there with leadership. Can losses linger to this extent? Like, we went back and looked at it. Obviously, the bludgeoning, I would put it, at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers in your own stadium. That's something that's tough to deal with.
Yeah.
Then you take on a Dallas team. They were outscored over those 2 weeks, 75-32, and that's really when things went left.
Yeah, went derailed.
We're sourcing that to the moment where it started to go wrong. Do you think that that can compound when you look at your next closest competition and say, we're not on the same level?
I'll say this. What happened against San Francisco kind of just opened up the Pandora's box for letdown performances moving the rest of the way. But let's keep it real. During that 10-1 stretch, Joe, they were lucky. They were lucky against the Commanders, right? Especially there in Philly.
Skated out.
They skated out. There were a few other ball games. They were really lucky in regards to winning ball games, winning those said ball games. And then, of course, when you played against a juggernaut of a team like San Francisco, they just brought it right down the teeth of their team. And another issue that I have with Philadelphia compared to what we did not have an issue with a year ago, they're not a physical team. Yeah. They're more of a finesse team, especially in the trenches. Remember this team from a year ago? They led the National Football League in sacks, 70+. They were a dominant physical team in the trenches. They led the NFL in rushing a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. They dominated in the trenches. On paper, personnel-wise, we felt like they had the dudes to be able to impose their will week in and week out. We haven't seen, even in tonight's matchup, they got punched in the mouth in the trenches. You talk about teams that get to championship level football, especially the Eagles from a year ago, what did they do? They beat you up in the trenches. You got to find a way to be physical. And they, at some point, lost that physical mindset from what we've seen, especially a year ago, based on the expectations that we had for them this season. That's another issue. Physical, being physical, tackling. What about tackling? I mean, they were horrendous all year long tackling.
Unwilling to tackle
on this stage tonight, it was just the want to. My defensive coordinator at Florida State, Mickey Andrews, one of the best to ever do it, right? He said tackling is all about want to, the will, the effort. You got to want to tackle. A lot of guys that play defense from time to time, they tackle because they have to. It's a part of your job title. Yeah. But the great ones do it because they want to do it.
Seek contact.
Yes, I want to tackle. I don't tackle because I play defense. that's kind of what it looked like in Philly. They weren't tackling. It's all about will and effort. And we never questioned tackling from them a year ago. We never really questioned effort. But those are things that kind of surface from time to time where you're like, okay, what's going on with those elements in their game?
To your point, 10-1 may have been a house of cards. Just 2 of those games were better than one-possession games. Of those 10 wins, 8 of them one-possession games where the ball bounced the right way. Nothing went right for them down the stretch. Mac, we are not here to call for jobs, but it's a conversation already being had. Quickly, in a few words,
yes, sir.
Nick Sirianni's job, where does it lie in your eyes?
I think it should be safe. I think he should be safe, man. It's hard for me to believe that the Philadelphia Eagles would fire Nick Sirianni a year after making the Super Bowl, having a great game, but just playing against Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. They made one more play and then returned after that Super Bowl loss, and you still made the playoffs, and you lost. And you fired him then? I think, you know, the emotions are so much driven with this organization. This is an emotional fan base, deserving so, because they ride or die about their Eagles. We see signs there in the stadium. Like, this guy came in prepared for that. He didn't write that sign in the stadium, Joe. He walked in with that already, just in case.
2 different color markers.
Exactly, just in case. So I think he should be safe. I mean, there's a lot of available coaches this season in the National Football League. There are a lot of vacancies as well. But come on, Joe, like, really? Like, Nick Sirianni's not a bad coach. I do agree he lost the locker room at some point. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I think he lost the locker room. But I think he still has shown enough to be able to return for the Eagles in 2024, right?
Plenty of uncertainty moving forward with these Eagles, and it's not a place we thought we would be after sitting at 10-1 in the 1 seed. The Eagles season comes to an abrupt end in the wild card round. All right, here's a look at your NFC playoff picture. 4 remain standing. The Packers, your first ever 7 seed to win a playoff game, will take the trip to Santa Clara to take on 7 All-Pros in the San Francisco 49ers. Then it's the Bucs making a trip to Detroit to take on a Lions team that's just feeding off that building. See if the Bucs can pull the upset. Lions, early favorites. More coming on CBS Sports HQ. Full highlights from Tampa Bay up next. Don't move. Everything coming on CBS Sports HQ.